It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Roni and Ivor Wolf. We're here in your beautiful apartment in Renana, and I want to thank Sue Jackson for the introduction. Roni, could you tell us a little bit about your most amazing story? And Ivor, you can also fill in because you're so connected to bringing the story to life.
No.
Really, I'm so grateful to both of you.
Thank you. Hello, Liz. Okay, so I was born in Belgium, in Antwerp, in 1940, and we had it was a Jewish family living in Antwerp. They'd come from the east, running away from the pogroms in eastern Poland, and we settled there until the world was hit by Hitler. In 1942 they came to, in 1941 Belgium had capitulated to them, and the Queen Mother of Belgium had made an arrangement that the Jews of Belgium would not be touched.
They had to be born in Belgium.
Wait, I'm telling the story.
Okay.
Ivor, could you maybe just show the pictures of Roni's parents?
Yeah, sure. It's a very interesting picture because the picture that you see here is a picture that that's Roni's father here. You'll see him here standing in the middle, and those are his brothers and also family, and in front is the grandfather. That's the grandfather and the grandmother, and that's Roni's sister, Regin, who only passed away just a little while ago, about a year ago now. She passed away living in Israel. She was 3-4 years older than Roni. Now, the interesting part about it, if you see this picture is torn. Now, what's interesting about it is the grandfather paid smugglers to take the whole family, this is only half the family, take the whole family out of Poland and bring them. The idea was to get them to Belgium, from Belgium to the promised land. They thought they'd get to America. They never got to America, but this is the half. When he only paid the smugglers when they actually got the two photographs together. And the smugglers brought them to Belgium, and this is the part of the family, Roni's part of the family, showing her father, her mother. This father was not married at the time. They did a shidduch. They brought the mother from also somewhere else in Europe. Where did she come from? Denmark. She came from Denmark. And they did a shidduch with Zalman, that's her father, and here's Malka,
Excuse me, this is my sister. So
that's your sister, yeah, no, I said no, of course. That's your sister, Nachman, that's the older sister, yeah.
And so this is the only picture of your parents?
It's the only picture we have of the parents together.
And that's on when they got married?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's when they got married.
Malka and Zalman.
Yeah.
And can I ask, how did this picture survive?
Okay, so after the war, my adoptive mother went to Belgium to find survivors in 1945, and she found me and my sister, and she went to and this is through the Red Cross, they had information. Then she went to the neighbors and she said, well, did anything get left? And they said, just that tower of the Eiffel Tower, which is over there. Have you got a picture?
They passed it over, yeah. I'll show you a photo of the Eiffel Tower.
Anyway,
the photo of the Eiffel Tower, made by her father in 1936. He made that Eiffel Tower, you can see it here.
And
I'm just going to show the original.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's amazing that it survived.
Yeah, it's been fixed a few times. Okay. Anyway, so she went to Belgium, and the neighbours said they've only got that left from those years. This was now after the war. And she asked, obviously, any survivors of the family. And they said, well, they think the orphanage took myself and my sister. just after the roundup. Anyway, she found the orphanage, she found myself and my sister, and I didn't want to leave. She said, okay, she'll come back in a few months and fetch us. Now, Madame Blum...
It's Madame Blum in the orphanage. I'll show you a photograph of the orphanage as well, but it's Madame Blum. That shows that because Roni was the youngest in the orphanage, all of the staff picked up, and all the staff...
They really were like... I didn't really miss my parents. I didn't cry. I was a happy child. I didn't know what happened.
This is a photograph of their children. And this is where their dining room was. That's the children, all the children in the orphanage, Wiesenbeck. And this is all of the staff with Madame Blum in the front here.
This is an interesting picture. I'm the littlest one there. There were about 150 kids. But people ask me, do I remember anything from there? And I say, not really, except I remember standing at the wall at the back and seeing there was a garden behind, and seeing soldiers, I don't know German, I don't know Belgian, I don't know which soldiers, crawling around the back. That's all I remember. And I also remember when the bombers we had to go underground, and I hated the smell of cabbage underground, and I didn't understand why when we go shopping, we go into the parking. I feel terrible. It's dark, anyway, yes.
So this is the orphanage, the Wiesenbeck.
Wiesenbeck, that's Wiesenbeck. It's just near Brussels, it's outside of Brussels.
So Roni, how did you end up going to the orphanage?
Well, my parents left Antwerp when they heard it. The Germans came to Antwerp first because that was the crux of the Jewish population in Belgium. They were all diamond cutters, tailors, artisans. And my parents thought if they go to Brussels, they'll melt in the crowd. But it wasn't to be. The Germans were too clever. They had the names, they had everything. So they rounded up the Jews of Brussels. And we were handed over to the neighbors with the Eiffel Tower and a few other things. And from what I understand, as soon as they were rounded up and went, the neighbors put us out to the streets. And a lot of because they were going to come back for the little kids. They were taking the adults first. And after they'd gone, the police rounded up the kids and put us into, this was a hospital. They cleared the hospital and they turned it into an orphanage. And they collected all the kids in the streets and put them there. One
of the donors to this hospital, this particular hospital, they converted it. You can see the hospital here. One of the donors was the Queen Mother. Queen Mother was a donor, and one of the man that collected money to keep this place is also an interesting character, Freddie Blum. He, after the war, married Madame Blum was
what was her name?
Albert. She was Madame Albert. He married her. In this picture here, you see probably the 58 children that were there when the Gestapo raided. You can see here, that's Madame Blum holding Roni as well, and you can see them all there.
And she was only 26.
She was 26 years old. And she was the fortunate thing for her, she was appointed, obviously well qualified, she was appointed to head this place because she was born Belgian. So the Germans had no way, didn't want to take her away.
So Roni, if you could mention when the Germans did come in, and they did...
Sure. I think just before that I want to show you a picture of her sister, who was adopted by
I think he means when they came in to do the roundup.
They came to take her, yeah.
In the orphanage.
Oh, in the orphanage. That's his story. He tells it beautifully.
But before that, I just want to show you Roni's sister. Was Madame Blum, what she did, she realized that the Germans knew exactly who was it, and they were biding their time. Whenever they needed, they could take away these children whenever they needed. So Madame Blum farmed the children out. She advertised and sent them out. what happened here, you can see Roni's sister was adopted by a Catholic lady. You'll see her there. What's her name, the Catholic lady?
Madame Couchy.
Madame Couchy. They kept in touch even afterwards, but that's Roni's sister. That's during the Holocaust, and that's Roni's sister walking with Madame Couchy in the streets of, and they used to come and visit Roni from time to time. And now we can talk about the rape.
She wasn't married,
No.
and she wasn't a nun.
Catholic, not a nun. I thought she was a nun.
I don't know why she was Madame. She
was a
should have been
madame, yeah.
Mademoiselle Couchy.
Madame. Anyway, she was never married. And then you can see here an interesting one. This is when we talk about Madame Blum trying to farm the children out to adopt. They didn't mind who adopted them, Christians, Jews. There were no, obviously, Jews, Christians, Catholics, whatever. She tried to farm the children out. This is a photograph of Roni with a teddy bear, obviously trying to sell the idea of her being adopted by anyone.
And I was.
She was adopted. Roni was adopted.
I was adopted, not adopted. I was taken by a couple, a dentist couple, and they phoned Madame Blum after I'd been there 2 days maybe, and they said, how do we make the child eat? She doesn't want to eat. So Madame Blum said, well, you have to, probably, because we used to ring a bell and all the children used to eat. And she probably is waiting for the bell. So what you can do is take 2 lids of saucepans, bang them together, and she'll eat. They tried that, but I was so stupid. And I wouldn't eat. So they returned me, or Madame Blum came to fetch me, because they were boasting that they had taken in a Jewish child, and Madame Blum was nervous about that.
Because I think they told the neighbours that they'd taken in a Jewish child, and it was very dangerous.
Madame Blum, yeah. You can see the children in Wiesenbeck at the time. This is probably just after the.
I used to wait for the bell.
This is children waiting for the bell to ring in order to have their meal. They were well trained.
Like dogs.
And in the picture above, where are you?
The picture above is an interesting one because we'll go to that. The picture above is interesting because when the Germans raided Wiesenbeck, there is one interesting point I really need to make because we never spoke about it. The Germans made a mistake when they raided. They went first to a convent, and I always feel that the convent should have advised Madame Blum that the Germans were on their way. They knew each other, and they redirected them. They came by mistake to the wrong place, the Nazis, and they redirected them. The convent redirected them without advising Madame Blum. They knew them, without advising them that the Germans were on their way. Didn't help the Germans came, but what was really interesting, when the Germans came, Madame Blum, for whatever reason, decided she needed to buy time. And she kept the officer in charge, we've got his name and his details, officer in charge, a high-ranking Gestapo officer. She kept him busy. She took him to a room, telling him that there were 2 little boys with contagious diseases. Of course, he went along and he had to go check up because he's going to load them on a truck. And he spoke to these 2 little boys, and we know the names of the little boys, and the little boys said, no, we've got no contagious diseases. But at least she had, and then she bought time by telling him that her staff were, luckily she had money in her drawer to pay the staff salaries. I don't know when it was. And she said the staff are non-Jewish and she should pay them their salaries. And this in fact saved the children in the end, because when she crumpled up the salaries to pay, she wrote the name of the office that would contact the Queen, never knowing that they were going to contact the Queen, but it was a chance. And then she refused to leave the children, so she got onto the convoy together with, Roni sat on her lap. She described to me in detail that Roni, when she sat on the lap, the driver of the Gestapo truck said to her, I've got a child of that age, similar age. So they were like talking very, very politely. And Madame Blum sat in front of the front truck, and they went off in trucks. So this picture, we'll come to this. This picture is very important.
So I think the name of the officer in charge was Dr. Holmes.
Holmes.
Can you? Must probably a medical doctor.
Must have been, yeah. Yeah, he was apparently well known among the community there. They knew exactly who he was. Anyway, the story is that they were taken. All the children at the time, there were 58 children when they came. A lot of them were at school, so they waited for them to finish school. They took them from the school, and the people that were in the hostel, Roni was in her bed, whatever, they took them as well. They took 58, loaded them on, and they took them to a siding. The siding is in Mechelen. They covered the trucks so that when they drove through the city in Belgium, they wouldn't see the kids there. And then when they took them to the siding, Dossin, that siding has now become a museum, by the way. And the interesting story is the delay that Madame Blum took didn't end there, because when the Nazis and the Gestapo handed these children over to the people that were loading them on the train, they were very educated people. They noted every single one, and they knew which truck, the person, the name of the person, and there was no computers in those days, so all of it was done by hand. So they put all these people on, and she went to him and said, look, some of these children had contagious diseases. I told them. And he said, you can't load them on this guy was obviously a German officer, responsible. He said, you can't load them on the truck. You have to take them to a shed. So she moved them to a shed, and at the time, one of these boys noticed there were 6 other infants nearby, come from Antwerp, and he schlepped them as well. He took those 6 infants, and those 6 infants are in touch with us to this day.
So she saved their lives?
She saved their lives. So she took not 50, she ended up with 64 children in the shed. And she stayed with that all the time, and for whatever time she bought, saved her, because obviously they got orders from hierarchy to return them to Wiesenbeck. And they put them on trucks, and they took them back to Wiesenbeck, and this is a picture. This is a wonderful picture, because this is a picture of the children, most of the children that were taken back to Wiesenbeck on that day when they were saved from the siding. And the interesting thing about this picture is some 70 or 80 years later, I'm jumping a little bit, 80 years later, a Dutch student of law, decided that he would help them put this museum together, because he received a bursary, and he drove 3 hours to the Dawson siding, and they had all these things collected from the Jews that left them there, and they were building a museum. And he found pictures of children. His name is Roni Heinzman, and he decided he would find these children. Now, anybody, you can tell me wherever you like, anybody who picked up a photograph 70 or 80 years later and could trace those children is a genius. But he devoted his time, all of his efforts, to finding these children. And all of these children he identified. Children in that picture that you see there, he identified. And some 75 or 80 years, I don't know, 2 years ago, he had us all on Zoom talking to one another. And the most amazing thing is they've all gone, all these children have done well. No parents, no grandparents, they've all done well, and they've all gone into fields that
help people.
Like the medical field.
Medical field, or even
educational,
making educational films and stuff like that. So interesting where these people are. One of the boys, who was one of those rescued, there's 6. I knew him. I didn't know his background. I knew him before. When I came to his, I never spoke. Jackie Visa, his name was. Jackie Visa ended up in Rhodesia. And when we came to volunteer in the army, he also wanted to come, but obviously he had polio. They wouldn't accept him, but he came with me on the plane. Never spoke about his background. I never knew. And he was with Roni on that rescue mission. He lives today in England.
Sharon Wolf.
Just switch off my phone.
And this is the book that Roni Heinzman wrote, From the Children's Home to the Gas Chamber.
Correct.
And this is the picture, and Roni, you've in, and this is a picture, and inside the book he has Roni Wolf, and here's the picture with the teddy bear.
The teddy bear. famous picture.
That's what started the whole thing.
And the lady that's standing next to her, you can see here, they were all adopted by families in America. I'll switch it off.
Switch it off.
I'll switch it off completely.
I think my husband feels more about this whole subject than I do.
No, because
He relates everything.
Ivor, that you'll explain how you did this book later, but it's incredible what you did.
The little girl standing next to Roni, you'll see her name is Annie. Annie was adopted by Mormons in the US, and she married, and she is a Mormon to this day. She was a little girl. She was a couple of years older, but they spoke. Roni and Annie, 75 years later, they spoke on Zoom as if they'd never left each other, as if they'd spent their lives together. It was so touching. Wonderful to talk to these people. And we still talk to these. Some of these people phone us on a regular basis, and we talk to them. They're all in America. Anyway, and Jackie Weiser, of course, is in London.
And have any of them come to visit you, or
we planned we planned to do that. We planned to.
it would be wonderful to have a reunion.
Yeah, we planned to take the fellow that wrote the book, of course, Rainier. We planned to take him. We offered him a trip to Israel, and we planned to take him to Yad Vashem, of course. And we thought that would be the time to invite everyone to Israel and have a reunion of all these people. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I don't want to go into the background, but what happened, obviously, he spent so much time and effort putting this thing together and finding these children and following it up, that he, I don't know why, the corona came around and he lost, I don't know, and he actually committed suicide. Sad
Such
story.
a tragedy, because what he did is so
Amazing. He needed recognition. I don't know if he got the...
He was a darling person.
Darling
He was
person.
so
Lovely man.
wonderful.
And
You can see, he sent us here for Ronnie's birthday. He sent us, I'll bring them now. He sent us little dried plants. We keep them on our mantelpiece.
It's
I'll
next
fetch
to
them.
the
I'll go and fetch them.
And Ronnie, you mentioned that I think his grandmother could have been Jewish.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think
he
she
said-
was,
he said
because
she was.
even in his book, he writes specifically that Ronnie reminds me of my grandmother. That's why I think we had such a
Did you ask
connection.
him what enticed him to do it? Why
Yes.
did he dedicated
didn't
so
know.
much of his life to do it?
First of all, he said he worked for the museum, and then he felt he had to find the pictures that were on the wall, and he felt part of it.
He sent Ronnie for her birthday.
That is so special.
Dried
That is so
flowers.
special, right?
He
It
sent
was.
her dried flowers,
incredible.
It
and he sent her these little chocolates.
From Holland, where he
From Holland.
lived. And he used to travel to Belgium, to the museum, to establish...
That is just so amazing.
It was a really good human being, that one. Really.
And his book, he actually
He
found...
wrote the book and then committed suicide. Nobody knows why. Nobody
So the
knows.
title of the book is From the Children's Home to the Gas Chambers, and how some avoided their fate.
Yes, so we were the ones who avoided.
You see Ronnie's on the back page.
Yes, he's
Yeah.
found me
See Ronnie's
already.
over here.
It's amazing.
Found me. Yeah.
But he actually identified, and every time he identified another child, he sent us a photograph, the same photograph,
Sit down.
with the ID and where he'd found the child and
And
who
a
he
ring.
a little ring around the...
Exactly.
we've got all the
One
photographs.
after the other.
One after the other. He managed to find them all. Yeah,
So-
I one day got a phone call. I don't know what I was doing. I got a phone call one day, and somebody, I can see it's an overseas call on my cell phone, and somebody says to me, do I know any human being called Razel Varman? And no one knows Ronnie by Razel Varman. I said, no, I happen to know Razel Varman. And he said, who is she? Where is she? I said, she happens to be married to me, and she happens to be living here in Israel. He was ecstatic. I don't know what number she was when he discovered, but she was probably number 5 or number 6 in the discovery.
It was one of the last he said,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
then he wrote the book as soon as he found
Yeah. And then he'd found
Everybody.
found everyone. Some of them had passed away, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but he found them. He found them whenever, even the ones that had passed away, he found out where they were. Where there was one living in Israel, Natanya apparently
No,
passed
she
away.
was 90-something.
Yeah.
And Ronnie, you were the youngest.
Ronnie was the
I was the
baby.
youngest in the orphanage.
An orphanage.
I don't know about it.
Not only was the youngest in the orphanage, she was the first person to be accepted by Madame Bloom. Her
I was number one.
Her number was number
wait,
one.
Let me tell this part. I think they found me and my sister together, the first ones after the roundup.
So were you walking the streets of...
I must have been.
Brussels.
This is of Brussels.
Brussels.
Yeah, in Brussels, running around. There were lots of
And
children.
say that the neighbours didn't hide you, or they just said
I
you
think they were
walked in?
nervous to hide them. I think I have actually feel that it wasn't perchance that the neighbours got that Eiffel Tower. I think the parents thought that there was going to be a raid. That's what I think.
That's what we were told.
And I think they handed them their goods in shackles, the neighbours, and they handed the children hoping that they would save the children. But I think that they were so nervous. They kept the Eiffel Tower because she found it when
After
Ronnie
the
was
war.
after the war. When Ronnie was 5 already, something like that. She found that Eiffel Tower. But her adopted mother, Ronnie hasn't told you, but her adopted mother is genuinely her father's sister. She married an Englishman, also Shidduch, before the war, just before the war, and she went to live in England, which is Mazal, I mean, big Mazal.
In 38.
She said, in 38.
Because she would have been off.
She would have
taken to
been,
the
she would have
camps.
been taken away with the rest of the family.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So now can I talk?
yeah, now you can go and carry on.
You are both just amazing, really.
Well-
You complement each other so beautifully.
Because we are so different.
I'll show you here her adopted father. You'll see her adopted father, also a wonderful character. If you really want to know about wonderful character, and her adopted mother, who's genuinely her
This is
aunt.
my aunt
That's
who
her aunt,
came
genuine
after
aunt.
the war
Rachel.
to find any survivors from
She
the
arrived
family.
when Ronnie was 5.
I want to tell this little bit.
Carry on.
And in the picture you...
No?
Ronnie's
Where are
there.
you in the
Oh
picture?
yes, I am in the picture.
Yeah,
This
Ronnie's
was
here.
when
There's
I was
Ronnie there.
11.
And your
Ronnie's
sister?
here.
This is my sister, and this is the 2 children that she already had. Well, she had just this one. This one came a little later. Anyway, yes. So after the war in 45, she came to find survivors in Belgium, and according to the Red Cross, they had all the names and everything from the Germans. And she came to the orphanage, and I didn't want to go. So she went home again and came back in a few months later, and now she was going to take us to England. So I remember, I remember like a horrific memory, that Madame Blum came to fetch me. I was lying on my bed, excuse me. I was lying on my bed, and she took me off the bed. I was 5, and she stood me next to this lady. She said, "This is your auntie, and she's going to take you to England." And I didn't want to go. And I clung onto Madame Blum's leg, actually clung to it. I wouldn't be schlepped off. And eventually she took my hand and gave it to this lady, who took me on a boat with my sister and to England.
So this is a picture you
Yeah, you
have.
can see the picture of her sister, Ronnie and her sister.
That was in straight after the war, in 46.
No, not this
She was
picture.
5. No, that's why you were 5 already.
Yeah,
And that's your Polish passport.
Polish
That's a
passport.
Polish passport. In spite of the fact that Ronnie was born in Belgium, she never got Belgian citizenship.
Because, we weren't citizens, that's why they took my parents.
She never got Belgian citizenship.
Citizens weren't touched. All the others were taken.
And Ronnie, can I just
Yes.
ask you,
Yes.
what do you remember other memories of the orphanage?
I remember being happy. I was always in somebody's arms. I was a little one, like a little... I remember being happy there. But in Sylvan Bracher's,
Bracha.
he doesn't write very nicely. This book. No, this is Madame Blum.
Yeah, there's another one.
There's another book. But I don't tell this, but he says he wasn't happy. I suppose the older ones had it tough.
Henry Wolf, also one of the people
Yeah, he
that we
also
talked to,
wasn't
says he
happy.
was unhappy in
So
the...
here you can see you smiling in his pictures.
Happy.
And this is with the staff. I think everybody just loved you and just wanted
I
to
felt
hold you.
happy.
And I think that you didn't want to leave.
I didn't want it. That was my mother. Madame Blum was my mother. and it was traumatic for me to go.
Oh, you can imagine she came at
I
the
just
age of 2
remember
and the
I was 3 years,
adopted mother
4 years.
arrived at 5 years old. She was 5 years old. She knew no other mother.
She was my mother, and then to be schlepped away was, for me, it was horrific.
And having your sister with you,
And she
must
was
have,
mostly with Madame Cauchy, but they used to come and visit. Yeah, she was
but
handed
did you
out.
also spend time in the orphanage?
A while, yes, but she wasn't actually there long enough to be part of what's going on.
And did you remember making friends with the other
No.
children in the orphanage?
No, I didn't have to. I had all those adults
She
with
was
us.
so
No,
too.
And I think when the other kids they went to school and
they
you,
went to school.
you
I
stayed in
stayed.
the...
I wasn't the
And
only
do you
one.
remember ever being hungry or not having
No.
enough food?
No, never. I'm thirsty at the moment, but I never remember hunger.
And what happened near the end of the war? Do you remember any of the bombing or any of the
I
war?
remember going down, they took all the kids down into a basement and it was dark and it smelled of cabbage, and if I smell cabbage today it brings it back.
Cooked cabbage.
But that was all. And then we were taken up again as soon as the bombing stopped.
What remains with Roni, it's interesting, is that if you have a underground parking garage, she would rather not go into the underground parking
that's
garage.
Memories from...
She's from
I
memories from
didn't
that.
know, but I've been to a lot of psychologists to put me right. And then I spoke about it, and then I thought, well, I know
Understood,
why.
yeah.
Now I understand why.
She wouldn't go into an underground parking garage, preferred to be in the light. That was a problem.
One doesn't come out of there unscathed.
But you're amazing, and I think...
I don't think I'm amazing.
Yeah.
I just feel that I have to live my life to the fullest. And I'm searching for God. I haven't found him yet, but I'm still searching.
Well, you're in the right place, that's for sure.
That's why I came here. Because Israel, for me, at 18, was the only place left for the Jews of the world. Because history does happen to, they say it doesn't repeat itself, but it does. And that's what makes me fearful today. And that's why it took me a long time to talk about this experience, but I do it now.
But for many years you didn't.
I didn't speak. Okay, so I got to England, and you can imagine what went on there. I was 5 and a half.
Do you remember the boat trip going with your
nothing.
sister?
This is what was very traumatic.
And you don't remember?
Nothing. I remember being taken onto a boat and landing in
But you went with
England.
your sister as well?
Yes, she took the two of us.
And you didn't know English?
Nothing. And I hardly knew French. I don't know, we spoke Flemish or Yiddish or something. But then we got to England, and I was put into a regular school in England. The teacher sat me under the board, the blackboard, by myself at a little desk with 40 pairs of glaring eyes at me, sitting in the front.
But she didn't speak a word of
I
English.
didn't speak a word. The bell rang for the playground. They all rushed out. I was left there now. And then my sister, thank God, would come to fetch me because she was 8 already. And the two of us would sit in the corner. I remember this corner of the playground, two little shepselers, you know. And it wasn't very pleasant. Till I went to high school. By that time I spoke English.
Can I ask, Roni, your aunt,
Yes.
I know she was quite strict with you, and I think you got on a bit better with her husband.
Oh, I loved him. He always wanted to have a son. Now, he had 3 daughters of his own. I realize it must have been very hard for her. I do realize that, but it doesn't make any difference to me. He wanted a son. We had a garden. I used to do gardening with him. He used to go running with me when I was 15, 16. I was a tomboy. I was a son he never had. And he's the one who gave me spanking, because she would say, Jack, they were so terrible today, and he felt he had to hit. So he hit me, but this you'll find very funny. If you hit somebody like this with a hand like this, it echoes very loudly, but it doesn't hurt. If you hit somebody like this, the flat hand, Ivor, can you switch off the phone? Thank you. And she also hit me plenty, but she used to call him but things were different in those days. They used to hit the kids. Today you're not allowed to. England was traumatic looking back.
But I think what must have been very hard for you is you weren't allowed to speak about...
Nothing.
You couldn't speak about being adopted, or I think you were adopted at 11.
At 11, that was quite late, so we always wondered why did they wait so long.
And speaking about your experiences in the orphanage, you couldn't relate those experiences?
Nothing. I couldn't say I love Madame Blum more than I love you. I couldn't say that. No, but even
with
amongst...
your sister, did you speak with your sister?
No. Yeah, I was just going to say, even amongst the kids, we weren't allowed to talk about it. I wanted to show that as well. And I used to go to the library and get books on the war, Germany, Gestapo, what had happened. And if I heard my mother coming up the stairs, I used to hide the books under the bed.
The books that you got, were those on,
yes.
on the Holocaust?
About Germany, the Holocaust. This was already 1947, I imagine. I was a bit older.
And how old were you?
I was almost 6 when I landed.
And you went to the library to get books on the Holocaust?
Yeah, the library was around the corner, yeah.
Didn't the librarian think this is a little bit strange?
No.
That you're taking books on the Holocaust?
Maybe because I was young, but I think maybe I was already 7, 8, 9 by then, I don't know. But in those years, everybody was looking for knowledge about what happened.
And could you not speak to your aunt about your parents, what had happened to them?
Nothing.
When did you hear that what happened to your parents, their fate, that they were taken to Auschwitz?
I think I must have realized that I have been in an orphanage, and therefore where were they, and therefore read the books, and then, because I didn't talk about it, never.
Yeah.
That's a major trauma. That's not a simple...
Traumatic.
But with your sister, could you not speak together? Or?
No, because she was like distant from me. I don't know. I had one of their kids sleeping in bed with me in the same room when we went to England. She was 6 months older. We used to fight, and she was
supposed
big.
to be sisters.
We were cousins. She was big and I was small, and she used to bring my fingers, pull my hair. We had to bath together. I mean, I understand it all today.
I'm sure that, listen, they had resentment because it wasn't that Jack Luck wasn't a wealthy man. And in London at that time after the war must have been very difficult that he was making a living.
He was in the army.
He was in the army, and he was also an interesting story, I don't want to go into it, but he adopted 2 other children. For him to support 5 children, and he was not educated, not well. He was doing all kinds of things, scrap iron, doing all kinds of things in order to make a living. So I can understand it was very hard, and I'm sure there were resentments from the other children as well. I don't really know because I only met them later in life, but I'm sure there was resentments, and I'm sure there was a problem with that. But with Jack was a wonderful Jack. Jack never saw any difference between Roni, Regin, and his 3 other daughters. He treated them all equally. In fact, in his will, when he passed away, he left everything to his wife, of course, but he wrote there that if his wife would pass away first, everything would be shared equally among the 5. He was a
wonderful
He was a wonderful man.
Maybe that's why they didn't want you to publicize that you were adopted.
Yeah.
Maybe you felt that
I've thought about all the reasons and this and that and the other, but for me it was hard.
And with the other kids at school, did any of them ask you where you were born or that your accent was different?
Yes.
When you were older?
Yes, when I went to high school I was 12. It was different from here. I was 12. There was an exam at 10, 11. After that you went to
Was
high
it a public
school.
high school
Yes. Yes.
in London?
Yes.
London.
And did you ever experience, did people know that you were Jewish, or did you ever experience anti-Semitism?
Oh, where? Hey, anti-Semitism. We used to go to Cheder in Hampstead Gardens suburb. We had to walk. We lived in East Finchley. We had to walk there to the shul. And the three of us, my sister, myself, and the oldest one amongst them, Rita, the one I shared the room with, we used to go to Cheder. We used to get, when we got near the shul, we used to get stoned by kids in the street. Near the shul, they obviously knew we were going to shul. Yeah. No, but that wasn't traumatic. They were kids. It might have been at the
And
time.
they were together, the three of them, so was I.
I don't hold that.
And did you make friends with the British girls at school?
Oh, at high school, yes. I was very naughty. They loved me. I used to climb out the window in the break and come back after the teacher was already in the class. They'd say, Roni, come. No, Rosa, coming, she's coming. And I used to try and get back in the... No, but I had a good time in high school with the girls. Yeah, that was a good period of my life.
And did you have any contact when you were in England with
No. Oh, with Madame Blum.
Blum, yes.
This is Madame Blum.
This is Madame Blum.
Madame Blum.
It's Madame Blum and Roni.
And we used to visit. They came to England.
Oh, they did come to England.
And
They
we
came
went to
England and
Belgium.
they went to Belgium as well.
And
She-
we corresponded
They remained
till
close,
she
they remained
died.
close.
Yes.
She stayed in Belgium.
She lived on in Belgium.
With,
And
with
she had children.
and two girls who, we spoke to them.
Are you still in touch with her daughters?
No.
You know, my life has been, this is just a section of what my life is. Do you want me to expand a little bit or not?
But it's a wonderful picture here with you and
I love her.
Madame Blum.
I love her.
But I think what you and Roni, what you both, you and Ivor, what you both did with your adopted parents, they later made Aliyah.
Yeah, well,
And
that's...
you, in a way, repaid a bit. You helped them.
Absolutely.
When my sister, not the one who was in the room with me, there's a younger one married to a accountant, and they, I don't want to talk about it, but we disassociate because we looked after, she's in England, we looked after my parents here for 20-something years. We put them into the old the retirement centre. They loved it.
Home.
They had a shul. They were Dutch in Yote. They had a shul and things to do.
They had a wonderful
and
life here.
food and
Did they have any of their daughters
They came
living
to-
here as well?
One daughter came to live here.
she
She unfortunately lost her husband, so she was also
So she
really
lived
dependent.
just the 2 streets up.
Two
My
streets,
parents
still
lived
does.
2 streets up that way. And we really, we really looked after them. They came, they were like in their 70s, early 70s. And when why do I stress this now? Because the one sister in England because this one doesn't really know what's going on so well. The one in South Africa is demented. She's in a home there. And the one in England, who's married to the accountant, is in charge of everything. I had nothing to do with the money here, except I bought a bed, I remember, I had a caretaker come to look after. And this one in England, really, her sisters, I don't know what she gave to them. We didn't care, we were care. And my sister I looked after. She also had dementia the last 15 years. And I looked after her in a home in Fasaba. She never married. She was so different from me.
Your sister never married?
Never married.
No, it was like my mother, when we came to England, said to somebody, she must have told people, because she said to this woman, "This is the clever one." And I'm standing there, I'm the younger child. You think I didn't know what she meant? There's the stupid one, Oh my God. Anyway.
Now, what's interesting about the sister, Roni's sister was a really very bright, very smart, the older sister. She ended up as a lab technician, qualified as a lab technician in England, and worked for a while as a lab technician. But obviously the Holocaust,
Show the picture.
because she was older, the Holocaust obviously had a great effect on her. So
Yeah,
she was really, because she became
mentally not
mentally not well. You can see a picture of her then, but I'll show you maybe a picture.
Now this is, I'll show you.
That's a
And you can see here, when she's in hiding, she had to wear the cross as well.
Yes,
Yeah, she had to wear the
yes,
cross,
yes. So all that must have taken its toll.
It took
on
its
her.
toll on her because she was much older, she understood what was
She-
going on, and she obviously paid a high price, because in later life she lived in she never worked as a lab technician, even though she was qualified. She went and worked as a nurse in a hospital, in the Sheba Hospital, which is still a shop.
She came to
worked-
Israel
yeah.
2 years before
Yeah.
me. And in England she was diagnosed as schizophrenic. Okay, my daughter also. So
Still
I
paying.
don't know how I'm what I am, but I'm happy and I'm cheerful and I look forward to life. But the two, she and my sister, my daughter are. So I had to deal with that.
Yeah.
The daughter had a gorgeous son on the spectrum. So he's here now. I had to deal with that. He's come a long way, he's high functioning, he's the culmination of
He's
my
got
life.
such loving grandparents.
No, but he is like the most lovely,
Yeah,
wonderful.
lovely.
And so my life is full, first of all, so I haven't got time to get depressed.
Ronnie,
She used to be depressed
it's important to note that Ronnie had apotropos on 3 people, on my daughter who's schizophrenic, my eldest daughter, on her son who's on the spectrum, and
my
on
grandson.
a grandson, and
My daughter.
and on her sister. The third one is her sister.
He said my sister.
Yeah.
So here we have, I'm just going to show it again with
Yes,
the
that's
the Luck family.
Luck
That's the
family.
one.
That was when they were adopted officially.
And then I was called Rosa Luck when I came to
Oh, they
England.
They changed the name.
Because I couldn't be Weisel in England and Varman wasn't to be spoken about. So I became Rosa Luck.
Yeah, but in 1954 you were in the netball team.
Netball team,
Oh
yeah.
my God. I did everything in life. Netball. I was, at home I was an
Yeah, you
angel.
can take a picture of Ronnie when she was in England. That was, you know,
But
That's when I started working in
Yeah.
hairdressing.
hairdressing. Worked
in,
at the zoo.
in each Finchley.
East Finch.
And were your adopted parents, or your aunt, were they loving towards you?
Not my mother, Fud. She was my aunt, but not. Maybe she was preoccupied with the others. But I mean, it was like I shared a bed with her eldest daughter, and like at night, she would come in because Rita, my adopted sister, was. And I used to pretend I was asleep, and she used to talk to her how she loves her more than me, and how she bought her a golden mazal here, and me only a silver. As a child, you look at all this, you don't know why. You just say, well, why is she better than me, you know? So maybe I grew up with a chip on my back.
Maybe chip on
And
your
here you
shoulder.
are.
Shoulder.
And Ronnie,
Yes.
coming to Israel, your sister came before you.
Yes, she was here 2 years
Yeah.
before me, and I asked my mother if I could also go. She said, no, till you're 18. I don't know
Do a
why.
trick. They had to do a bagrut.
I did the bagrut, and I got 13% in maths.
I wouldn't brag about that.
No, but I'm quite good at
But you
now.
passed matric.
I passed matric. So then I was allowed to go to Israel. So I was going to Habodim, and the group was going. So I said to my mother, I have to go. The group is going. We were all just almost 18. No, that's the army
Well,
hour.
no, but we get to that now. You're talking about coming to Israel.
No, but before, I had a life before
Okay,
you, my
okay,
boy.
before you met me.
He thinks I only had a life with him, which is almost
So
stupid.
that's when your life really took
Really
off.
began. But I was a year on kibbutz in Israel with the group. There is a picture there, but it doesn't matter. And I had a good time on the kibbutz. There was, my life began.
Do you remember the name of the kibbutz?
Of course, Usha, near Haifa. And
It's right near Kfar
Atta. Today you can't recognize the place.
And your sister was here at the time.
But she was on another kibbutz. She was at
north.
Gadot, kibbutz.
Not in the north.
So we visited now and again. It's fine. And I made a very good friend from England on the kibbutz. And when the year was up, we really had a good time. When the year was up, she said, what are we going to do now? No, maybe I said, what are we going to do now? She said, let's go to the army. I said, yalla, go. And the two of us, and here we are.
And you were very happy in the army.
Very happy. Why shouldn't I be? 16 South African guys, and we were 2 girls plus 1.
Now there's an interesting story with that. I related the story. Interesting story is that the South African Zionist Federation are very, very active, and they do a lot of wonderful.
It's Telfed.
And the Telfed, wonderful group, and they actually organised us. We were 16 South African boys. We came together, and we had one little girl with us, a girl called Adrian Kramer. So we were 16 boys and one little girl, and suddenly Mr. Simon Weinstein was head of that particular department. He helped. He was in during the war years. He was a Rav in the
48.
In the war with the South African troops. He was a Rav.
48.
He was like very Kippola and everything. So he looked after the South African troops, the Jewish troops in the war years, and then he came to Israel, and that was his department. He looked after the volunteers who came, and one day he got a phone call from the British Zionist Federation saying that I'm just thinking maybe if we still got a court case, maybe we can, South African Fed can sue them because we're still supporting the 2 little girls to this day. Anyway, they said they've got 2 little girls who would like to come to the army. They heard we've got a group which they call a Garin coming into the army, and could they join our Garin, these 2 little girls? And of course, Mr. Simon Weinstein, big
We were
heart,
19 little girls.
they were
big girls.
19 years old, big girls, and they were accepted into our Garin, the 16 South Africans, and now we had 3 little girls. And the photograph, I showed you the photograph. This is a photograph of the. Most of them are here. Some of the boys are not here.
But they've passed away.
But we've got a lot of half of them have passed away. But we've kept in touch.
Now, where are you in the picture?
You want to see me somewhere up right in the bottom.
And where am I?
And Roni, is you show me where you are, right in the middle.
That
In the
one.
middle.
Right in the middle. That's
and
how.
Ronnie, you can see you smiling.
I'm happy.
You're very happy. You can.
My life is happy. I'm happy with him.
And we finished the army after the ladies, and and we went to kibbutz as well. We had a period where we spent time on kibbutz together. So
Shalat,
they have a
Shalat.
period between basic training and advanced training, and then we really spent time together, and we got together and so. And
We were on Yiftach,
yeah,
and the girls were on Yotfata.
yeah.
And then afterwards did they put us together? Oh, you were separated.
No, we were separated. We went.
Okay.
We went down south. We were in kibbutz, the Tivalamat Hay.
Yes.
And we were very unhappy there. We wanted to join our Garin to go back, and cause we were supposed to be the advanced class in Hebrew, and we felt that wasn't right. We complained to the Fed, and the Fed finally, I don't know what they did. They pulled some strings, and we were moved to Yiftach. So we were all together. We were all together at Yiftach, which is a beautiful place up in the north. It's right on the Lebanese border. Lovely area.
But what's interesting is that you proposed to Ronnie, and
No, I didn't propose. Not while we were in the army, but
but you were interested,
I was interested,
and it took a bit of a while.
It took a long time because
You were admitted.
Ronnie finished the army 6 months before us,
Excuse
and Ronnie
me.
went back to England.
Okay. Now it's my turn.
Now your turn.
Now the truth will out.
Right, out, okay.
All right, so now I had a couple of boyfriends before this one, but then I saw he was the smallest, he was the smartest, he was the nicest, and I thought, okay, even if you no education, no money, no wonderful 6 foot tall and blue-eyed and blonde hair, okay, because there was one like that, but no. Anyway, so we became girlfriend and boyfriend, right?
Correct.
Am I right up to here?
Right up to there.
Then we finished the army, my friend and I, and we found work. I did housework in somebody's house, and they did advanced training for 6 months. He was in the paratroopers, and he finished, and we all shared a flat in
Just near the Zionist Fed building in Givatayim.
Givatayim. Then I thought, okay, now what? He asked me to marry him. Right or wrong?
Right.
And I wasn't ready. Let's put it this way. I hadn't had enough boyfriends.
Okay.
I wasn't ready. And I said, no, I'm going back to England. So I went back to England and I left him here. And my girlfriend, he wanted to come to England. My girlfriend said, she told me this. She said to him, don't go, she's not going to marry you. Today she regrets it. Anyway, so I worked in England, this and that, and then he phones from England that he's in England. Will I marry him? I said, no thanks, Ivor. I really...
It wasn't a telephone call, but anyway, I hitchhiked. I had a return ticket through the Federation to go back to South Africa, and I decided on my own take a pack. I worked at a building site. I earned a bit of money. I had a little bit of money. I was a common labourer, and I then took a boat from here to Greece, and from Greece I hitchhiked through the whole of Europe. I had very great adventures on the way, and I finally landed in London, and I had the opportunity of, we didn't have telephones those days, no cell phones, and we wrote letters. And I wrote to my mother. She holds the letter still in her hands today. I wrote to my mother saying, I think I met the girl I want to marry. And my mother wrote back very smart. My mother was very clever. She said, come home, study, and when you're a bench and you can support a family, we'll give our blessing, and you can go back if you think she's the right girl for you. Of course, I didn't listen. I carried on through Europe, ended up proposing. She didn't accept my proposal. And that's also an interesting story. She never accepted my proposal. I decided, well, I'm in England anyway. I'm going to see the country. I hired a motorbike, a motor scooter, and I travelled all over the place. I was in Wales, and I ended up in a seamen's hostel.
My turn.
Now your turn.
Okay. So he got into a fight in the Seamen's Hospital because he had an Israeli flag on his backpack.
Anti-Semitic.
Even in those days. On his backpack he had a little Israeli flag, and they got into a fight. And the guy there, and he got stabbed. And the guy who owns the hostel there said, you better go out because they'll call the police and they'll do an interview.
So Ivor, can I just mention, you were stabbed because you had an Israeli flag?
Well, it started from that. It started from insults. I was in a seamen's hostel. They're all similar ages to me, and there were some bad remarks. I was 19 years old at the time, and they were all my similar ages, and some bad remarks about the Magen David on my pack, and also bad remarks about Jews in Israel, and I was a little hot-headed in those days. I could have walked away, I'm sure. Yeah, and I didn't walk away, and we started a rough and tumble, and some people joined in on my side. Mainly, the ones that joined in on my side were mainly employees that looked after the hostel. So we made a real mess. It was a real rumble. And at the time I got stabbed, I felt bleeding on my right-hand side. I was stabbed in my right hip, and one of the directors of the hostel, employed by the hostel, took me aside and bandaged me up, and he said he probably meant that I was Jewish, and because I was a little different, when the police arrived they were going to come, I shouldn't be there. He said, and you're a foreigner, he told me. He didn't tell me I'm Jewish, but I understood the word. So he bandaged me up and he said, you better get out of here. Those days you weren't allowed to have a vehicle, and you weren't to live in a hostel, a youth hostel, You weren't allowed to have a vehicle, and you weren't allowed to have a motorbike. I left my motorbike about a half a kilometre away and tied it up. So he didn't know, but I went to my motorbike. I got on my motorbike and I drove from Cardiff in Wales all the way back. I was bleeding still, all the way back to London to my saviour.
Wait, then it's my part of the story. I get a phone call that, I've been stabbed. That's my grandchild. Oh, I've been stabbed. I said, come, my darling, I'll look after you. And once he came to me in East Finchley.
No, she bandaged me up. She looked after me, and we spent some time together. And with her parents, I stayed in the house with her parents. And then one thing led to another. We got engaged in England. And after getting engaged in England, we went to South Africa. I had to
For the wedding.
Make a living. We had our wedding in South Africa with my family. So we had, in England we had only Roni's mishpocha.
We weren't a big family.
And I had Harry Brand was with us.
Friends.
I had a friend of mine
friends.
studying architecture in London, and he was the only one representing my side of the family, Harry and Evelyn Brand. And I give great people. They're still wonderful people, still close friends, still live in Israel today. So they came, they were my representatives at my engagement party, and we went off to South Africa and spent 13 years there.
And he kept saying, because I kept saying, when are we going, when are we going, when are we going to Israel, when are we going?
Yeah.
And after 13 years and 4 children, I said, no, either me or South Africa.
Yeah.
And we came to
So
South
I had a
Africa.
choice. I should have chosen, but I made a mistake. I chose Ronnie. Anyway.
And when you came to South Africa, Roni, your parents, Ivor, your parents accepted Roni?
Absolutely. I had an aunt, a wonderful aunt, had no children.
Yes.
And she was a lovely lady.
She used to look after
She
the
took
whole
Ronnie
family.
in like a daughter. She took
She was
everybody.
lovely.
She took Ronnie in like a daughter.
His mother worked, his father worked.
And where did you get married?
In
It's in
Berea,
Yeovil.
in the Johannesburg.
Berea or Yeovil?
Yeovil, Berea, I think. Berea.
No, Yeovil.
Yeovil.
No, Berea.
And you lived, I know you grew up in Mayfair.
I grew up in Mayfair, but we moved when we moved to Siddledean. That's why I educated in Siddledean in the Yiddish suburb. Today it's Chinatown, by the way. Anyway, so we lived a lovely
We
environment.
lived in Bellevue,
Yeah.
in
And
Yeovil.
When we came, we lived in Yeovil. Yeah, we lived in Yeovil.
And you happy you came to Israel, that you made that move?
Oh, it was my life's dream to be in Israel. And it's not been easy all the time, but we're here, and that's all I've ever wanted to do.
But then I think we must continue with the interesting story that 6 years ago, or more, 6, 7 years ago, I don't know, my daughter was still at school, and Yad Vashem.
Because can I just interrupt for a minute?
Absolutely.
You never spoke about the war experience.
No. That's how it all came out, yes. It all came out then.
So Ivor, you can continue.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
going to
right.
get water.
Okay, you can. So, I don't know what year, have a look what year it was, right?
I don't know. Look at the top of it.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, my daughter was still at school. Yeah. Ella. This is
2009.
2009. Okay, so it's talking about it's quite a time ago. Anyway, so 2009, they were preparing for Yom HaShoah, and what happened is the Yediot Achronot approached Yad Vashem, and they asked Yad Vashem they'll donate to the Yad Vashem the center page commemorate the Yom HaShoah. And then what happened with Yad Vashem, the lady at Yad Vashem chose photographs. She could choose at random. I spoke to her afterwards. I asked her why she chose these photographs. She said, I have thousands of photographs, and every year, by the way, because Jews had thrown away all their belongings, and Goyim had picked up some of these albums, and after a while now they were being handed back in Europe. Even to this day, Yad Vashem are collecting albums from Europe from non-Jews that were picked up during the war years. So she chose these photographs. You can see there some lovely photographs here. And I asked her why she chose these photographs. She said she chose these photographs because she said obviously she was hoping to find some survivors. She worked out the time, 2009, the war ended in the 40s. She hoped that some of these people would survive. Anyway, I'm very forgetful, and we spoke about it. My daughter arrived one night, the night before, with a Yediot Achronot. She placed the center page 11 o'clock at night on our kitchen table here, and she said, "Who's that?" And this little girl with a teddy bear, I'd seen it before, I'd seen the photograph before. We have a copy from Madame Blum. And I said, "That's Roni," and she said, "That's Roni." And we were very excited. And then the next day I phoned the Yediot Achronot. I said, we identify the photograph. And they asked me, "Where is she?" I said, "Yeah, she's here in Ranana." Of course they came through with an entourage, and they said, "I'm the little girl in the photograph." So that was an interesting experience there for a rehashing of the whole.
So, Roni, how did it feel seeing your picture in the major Israeli newspaper?
Well, I don't know. My daughter was very excited. She was grown up already. And she said, "Ma, it's you. And I said, "Oh my God, it is. How did they get it?" I don't know how they got it. It was, I can't even describe what it was. It was truly amazing. Like, suddenly coming out of the closet.
And Roni, this teddy bear,
Yes.
was it your teddy bear?
No idea. I'm
sure that Madame Blum used that for photographs, to try and get these kids adopted.
Did the teddy bear survive? Does anybody?
I don't think so. I don't think it survived.
I came with nothing.
You'll see that we've got a photograph of Madame Blum with a teddy bear, and we've got a little inscription at the back in French. I'll show you the picture. Here you are. There's the teddy bear, and a little inscription on the back in French.
Just in case people didn't believe it was me, I found that picture. And I turned it around. I'll tell you what it says. La Petite Raisel, Madame Simon, she's the woman who took me. Chez means at the home of Madame Simon, à Bruxelles, in Brussels, 1943. So I know I was 3.
She was the woman that was supposed to have adopted Roni, which didn't fall, that fell through because Roni wouldn't eat.
Roni was a naughty girl. But I was happy in the orphanage.
And then, Roni, you have this picture behind you.
Yeah. That's
also very.
A month ago we got this picture.
That's recent, let me get out.
But that's that other part of the story that only came out now.
It's somebody, they published.
See the book.
In this magazine, do you want that or not really? In that magazine, yeah, a friend of mine read a story similar to mine about a girl in Greece. In Greece. Salonika. And there's the whole story about her, and there's what she knew was my picture, but she has altered it.
They looked to illustrate the picture. The woman that we met, who actually did the painting for her, that's that painting.
Only a month ago.
Looked to illustrate the picture, and she got onto Google and said she's looking for a Holocaust survivor in Google. She put in all the details. Holocaust survivor, 3 years old.
Because the stories are the same.
The picture that came out of Google, was Roni's picture.
No, that's what. No, we don't know if it's Roni's picture.
That's what she told me.
But this is the only difference here is you're not smiling.
Yeah,
I think in this picture.
Yes, looks like I'm so. Yes.
No, but it's an amazing picture.
It is an amazing painting. Yeah. We met the lady.
She's a very good picture.
She was happy to give us the painting.
And If we can look at Madame Blum's book,
Yeah, that's very
what's amazing is that she got a citation from the Congress.
Yeah, that's your
I'll
story.
show you the citation from the Congress.
Here it is.
Yeah, Congress, yeah. She got a citation from the Congress because most of her people that she saved ended up, you can see that there's a lovely inscription here as well where they actually thanked her for the amazing work that she did. She was invited to the US and the Congress gave her a special citation.
It's from the Senate.
Yeah.
She got the
Senate.
It's so nice that she got the recognition that she so
She
deserved.
deserved it, sure.
Yes. Who actually notified?
I think both he passed away. The one that helped her take the 6 children,
You put this
he
in
passed away. He was in
the-
America.
And you kept in touch with her all the years.
All the years.
all the years.
And when did she pass away?
About 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5,
She
6 years.
got to good old age.
We kept in touch even with her sister. Her sister came not only here, her sister lives here. And, I think she lives in Batyama or some place like that. We kept in
Yeah, I
touch
don't
with
know
her.
what happened to
Don't know what
her.
happened to her, yeah.
When you were in the orphanage, did the sister, was she involved
she
in your
never saw
life,
the
or
sister.
you never
No,
saw
the
the life?
sister
Her
until we come
sister,
to Israel.
no. Only when we've, afterwards
live
we
in
came
Israel.
to visit her in Belgium, or she came to Israel to visit her sister. Then we got to know the sister.
And Roni, when this came out in 2009 in the Israeli paper,
It's 14 years already. Oh my God.
did this, I'm sure a lot of people started to ask you questions,
Oh my God.
and I'm sure you started speaking. Is this when you went more public?
Yeah, it was like, as I said, came out of the closet. I was asked to talk at various schools, but I wasn't ready 13 years ago to do that. I had a neighbour downstairs
She
who
lived here,
used to do it. She was older, 10 years
Gita,
older.
she's from Australia.
She used to go to the schools and
She spent her life. She
on
was
Yom
very
HaShoah.
dedicated. Not only Yom HaShoah, every day of her life. Spent her life going to all
All right,
kinds of...
but the main thing was
And
what
she came to Roni and said, you've got an obligation. You need
I thought this was my story.
carry on.
Anyway, she said, Roni, you have to do this, you have to do it. I said, oh, I'm not ready. Anyway, she died, and then I thought, you know what, I have to do this. So I started going, oh, that was the best. The first one was the best, which gave me heart to carry on. I got a phone call from a group who invite overseas students. I'm talking 20 to 25, not kids. And there were like 40 of them, and it was Yom HaShoah, and they invited me to go talk to them, which I did. So my son and my husband, of course, helped me with the pictures and
Filmed
everything.
it, yeah.
They filmed it. And I just gave them a quick of my background. Not like I'm doing intimate like with you. Just a quick story. And then I asked them questions. Now these 20, 25-year-olds didn't know anything virtually. They came from all over the world. All spoke English, we did it in English, and we had fun. You know, I'd say something, they'd laugh, and I didn't keep back. I've got a filthy mind in a way. I didn't keep back. And I just went along with them, and we had such a great evening. And since then I've done B'nai Akiva, I've done schools, I've done your shul, people in South Africa.
You spoke at the Holocaust Center in Cape Town.
In Cape Town and in Joburg.
Joburg.
Yeah.
And it was well attended.
No, the Joburg one wasn't. The Cape Town one was also a very interesting series. We met friends of ours who live in Israel. We met them in South Africa whilst we were there, and we had lunch with them, and they said, we just came from the Holocaust Museum, you should go see it. The next day we went to see it. Now we were walking, and there was a group of 17-year-olds, not Jewish, and being the madriach, the leader, was a young guy, and he was explaining to them that this was this and that was that and this, and there's like 10 girls there, and they're looking at their watches, they're looking at their photos, they're talking to each other, really not interested, and I sort of got a bit. So So when they finished talking, I put up my hand and the guy said, yes, do you have something to say? I said, yes. I turned to them and I said, have you ever met a Holocaust survivor? And they looked at each other, no. And here came the dinosaur and said, well, I am one. I'm 82 years old, and I just want to tell you one thing. Whatever you see, whatever you experience happened was true. And I walked away. The head of the Holocaust Museum, Cape Town, came looking for me, found me. She said, we've got 10 groups. They come from the schools every year, 17-year-olds. Would you like to speak to all of them? Do you have time? I said, I'm on holiday, of course. She got them all together in a big room, and then I told them the story in detail. And I got things afterwards, how interesting this and that. They were really interested when they saw somebody who had been through it. And from there, the whole thing just exploded. I had a guy from Belgium, I think I told you, wants to meet.
You won Sue Jackson on KFM, which has been extremely well received.
Yeah.
If you want to see here, you can see here, interesting, this is, Roni came to visit us when we were paratroopers. Roni and Pearl, the two English ladies, they'd already finished the army. They came to visit us when we were doing a paratroop course. You'll see me somewhere there. I don't know where I am exactly, but I'm there somewhere. All these with all their names. And there's Sami Weinstein, by the way. He's the real father of all the Machal, all the volunteers from 1948 onwards. He was in charge from the Zionist Federation.
But we were there in 59-6.
Yeah, from the beginning of the World Liberation. He remained on in the head of that department.
You right over here.
And I'm over here, somewhere in the middle. And over here, I'm down the bottom there, sitting there.
And Ivor, your brother, he volunteered in the 56?
My brother came in, he was here in the 56, yeah, he came
in the Sana campaign.
Yeah, he came in the Sana campaign. He was the one that influenced me. He gave me, I think I was brainwashed by him. He read me, when I was hardly reading fairy stories, he read me from Jabotinsky.
He was in Beitar.
He was Beitar. He was a Beitari, and he was a Madrich, a Mafakir in Beitar. So he brainwashed me at the time, and I thought maybe he knows something I don't know.
So you have given Roni the most amazing gift, and I think whoever watches this is such a. But you really have. Can you tell us how you organised this and how you kept it secret till the anniversary?
Absolutely. It was, I think that Roni must have suspected something.
Of course I did.
And I'm sure I was having an affair because phone calls going
when he got a phone call about this, he's run to the bedroom. I said, he's so open, what might be told, why? And then he'd start whispering.
And I had some wonderful help. First of all, I had someone, I'll tell you, John's daughter.
Orly.
That is Marie Albert Bloom's her book.
I had that book translated, Marie Albert's book translated for me, because it's in French, to help me with time and effort. And this Orly was amazing. She helped me put it all. She edited a lot of the work that I had. We spent a long time together. She lives in Hadera. I used to drive all the way to Hadera to sit with her and go through all the things.
And you didn't suspect at this time?
No, she suspected that I was having an affair.
It was the furthest thing from my mind.
And then I organised to get it exactly on her birthday, on her
80th anniversary.
Yeah. So not only that, the book was
your 80th birthday.
Anniversary. Oh no, sorry, yes.
Yes, your 59th anniversary.
59th.
59.
Sorry.
And
you were 80 at the time?
Yes.
Yes, right.
And your 59th anniversary.
Yeah.
So how did you surprise? You went to a hotel?
I booked it. Anniversary.
Tell him I didn't have anything with me.
I told her, come again. She really came as she was.
As you saw me this morning.
She came out, got in the car. Where are we going? I didn't tell her. I booked the hotel, and she came, I think you had to borrow a dressing gown.
Well,
Anyway,
from the
so-
spa.
From the spa. Anyway, she came as she didn't expect
The
it.
guy from the hotel came to the car, "Can I help you with your cases?" I said,
Had no cases, yeah. Anyway, we came to the hotel, beautiful hotel, and the way to Jerusalem, Yorba dinner, and then I gave her, at evening I gave her the book, and I presented her with the book, and so it was
I was so astounded.
You said
It's the best thing.
it's better than diamonds and gold.
Oh, did I tell you that?
It was on Sue.
It was the best present I ever got. It was just so heartwarming. I love him dearly because of
well deserved, only because of the book.
59 years later, because of that book.
Now it's 62 years later.
No, I was saying for the last 2 years. I love you.
But Ivor, this was an amazing. What you did here is something actually quite such an accomplishment.
I must say, Roni didn't have a good relationship with Rachel. That's her aunt, her real aunt. But I had a wonderful relationship with her. And with me, she was very frank, very open, spoke about the Holocaust, spoke about I think she felt guilty that she had left because she had no idea what was going to happen. I think she felt guilty that she'd missed all of that and she lost her whole family.
That she survived.
And she survived. I think she had this guilt complex
Absolutely.
till the day she went. And I think it stayed with her. But with me, she was very open, very frank, very good.
But this was 59 years
I have
later.
to say one other thing, that when we came in Aliyah, we decided we're going to take the children. We had time. It wasn't school terms, school year. They were already in school. We were going to take time off and take them through Europe on a trip, which we'll probably never have a chance to do again. And we arrived in England. I knew Roni's father and mother, and I said, "Come, we're going to buy a caravan." And he said, "Don't waste your time buying a caravan. I'll take you to a sale." And we went to an auction sale where they sold an old Scotland Yard, a van that they took prisoners in, and it was 12-seater, and I bought it for £500 on the sale. £500. Interesting story, and he was so enthusiastic. He said he's going to join us. Jack, he was a real character. So Jack Luck, prisoner of war he was taken by the Germans in Anzio. He was put into a POW camp. He escaped. He was a real wonderful character. He escaped a few times. They finally caught him and they put him back in POW. They realized that he was a troublemaker. Maybe because
That's
he was
how
Jewish.
he came.
Troublemaker. So they took him out. And it was winter in Germany. He was in a POW camp. Took him out and they told one of the soldiers to kill him. So they took him into the forest, Jack Luck, took him into a forest, and he was instructed to run. He refused to run. So the German soldier shot him at point blank range in the back, and the bullet came out somewhere. He had a hole in it, his tummy. Yeah. Luckily for him, it didn't puncture any of the essential, not his lungs and not any else, but he was left for dead in the forest. And his wife, Rachel, was advised already in England that he was lost in battle. She had at the time 2 children. She had two children. She was advised that her husband is no longer alive, Jack Luck. You'll see his picture there. Yeah.
I'm looking for it. No, you
See Jack Luck's picture. So what happened is, he describes the story. He said when he finally recovered consciousness, he was lying face down in the snow. He said that saved his life because he managed to take snow and put it on his lips and keep himself alive. Now German civilians came to the forest and found him. He was a POW, so they took him. They didn't know his story. They took him innocently, took him to a civilian hospital. They operated on him a few times.
Anyway, the Germans found him lying head down in the snow, and they took him to the local hospital, and they must have known he was a Jew because he must have been wearing an outfit from the camp where he was interned. But anyway, they operated on him, they saved his life, and the next thing he was repatriated to England. More operations, but he was fine. He was back to the old Jack. Anyway, so this was like, I don't know why he wanted to mention we went 3 months through Europe with 4 kids.
And did you go to Belgium?
That's one of the times we went through Belgium, through Europe.
And you met
Madame
Madame
Blum.
and your children met her?
My children met her. She came here a few times. She was my best. I think she kept me alive. I got all my naughtiness from Jack, but I loved him. That was that.
And Roni, can I ask?
Yes,
when your
anything.
children were growing up,
Yes.
did you speak to them about the Shoah, or when
No.
you were?
No.
What happened to you and your sister?
No. I think by that time they were. I remember when the youngest was 16. No, not the youngest, second, I took them all on the balcony of our house in Israel. So we arrived in 74. It must have been right at that time. I must have felt free to actually tell them. I took them all on the balcony and I told them exactly this story. And they had sensed, they knew, but I actually told them everything and put it behind me and didn't talk about it again till that.
But did they ask, how come we don't have grandparents, or?
I think they had grandparents in South Africa.
Yeah, but not on your side.
And they had the grandparents, Jack and that. They knew them as grandparents because we brought them out here and we used to go to dinner at Jack and Rachel, and they used to come Friday nights here. So they knew they were the grandparents until they were 16 or whatever. But they got on well with them, everything was fine. It was
And
just
your children
me.
have been to Poland, they've gone on the...
They've all gone, they've all been.
But you haven't been.
And my son, my oldest son, said 5 years ago, Granny, come, we'll go, I'll take you. And I said, okay, fine, I'm ready for anything. And then came about 2 days before, I said, Jason, I just cannot. I don't know why, I just cannot go. You'll have to find somebody else or whatever. I couldn't.
It's maybe just too traumatic to...
But I don't know why. I mean, I've gone through everything. I've been to the Holocaust museums. I couldn't go. And I still think, oh no, I can't. They found names of my parents on the wall there. They sent...
And Roni, when did you find out that your parents were taken to Auschwitz and they never survived?
I think it was already in Israel, because when my mother and Jack came to Israel, they had boxes of all sorts of documents, and I think I went through them.
So Roni, can I ask, what message do you impart to your children, grandchildren, and to the future generations?
Well, I'm now nearly at the end of my life, and I've given it a lot of thought. And I think the main thing about life, I can just tell you from my life what's actually given me hope is one of them, to live on. You have to find the people around you that give you strength. My husband of 61, 62 years is amazing. I mean, we're compatible, but we're very different. But we see the other point of view and we laugh the whole time. That's very, very important. Not to be afraid of the world. The world has happened. The worst has happened in the world. It might happen again, but you can't sit and think it might happen again. You don't preempt these things. You just enjoy the moment, enjoy the good things in your life, because there are, and they overshadow the bad. You have to get back to the root of why you love your life. And I love mine. Coming from where I was, And I've got a grandson in the background who's shaking his head. And you know what? The worst has been, nothing can be that bad. Enjoy it.
Well, Roni,
I just want to say one more thing, sorry. I don't know if you've been wondering, but it's only a trigger finger. I play bowls and my husband plays bowls. Everybody, 200 people at the club say, "What, did he hit you again?" Because they know him. And he's the
that's
kindest
wonderful
person.
Well, Roni, I just want to thank you.
Yeah, no. It's been an absolute...
No, Roni, it's
I'm
been...
going to kiss you whether you like it or not.
Very much. Roni, I cannot thank you enough. It's been for me the greatest honor and privilege to meet you and Ivor, and your story. It's not only incredible, it's not only amazing, but it's just unbelievable. And to see you so positive, and to see Ivor so positive, and see thank God, after 61 years, you're smiling. It's just such a... Wow, you're an example for all of us to emulate. You both are just amazing people. And Roni, I don't know, it's just... This picture with you and the teddy bear...
Started the whole thing.
It really did.
It really did.
Wow, I'm just so incredibly grateful to you. You should just have all of Hashem's blessings ready. And you said near the end of it, we still got many years to go. Many years to go. At maybe stream plus mum. There's many years. But please God, you should just have muzzle.
That's a good one.
Muzzle and bracha and all of really
you.
just... We are so grateful to you. And you should continue because you inspire. You know, you inspire you and Ivor, you inspire everybody who hears you. And you are just amazing, and I'm so grateful to you.
I'm inspired and I'm going to continue.
Come say hello and finish.
Hey, Granny.
This is my grandchild.
You're inspired by your grandmother.
Yes, I am. I feel that my grandmother is a worldwide hero. She's a person who's really positive, and after she's gone through lots and lots of, I mean, these things aren't easy, but as she kept up and she rose like a phoenix, that's the best thing I could wish for my grandmother, and I'm going to continue her legacy in all ways.
Thank you, Tom.
That I can
Wow, that is just absolutely magnificent.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Oy, that is really beautiful. So special.
She always teaches me how to be positive, even in my negative moments of downfall. I feel that somebody's there to enlighten me, and I always look for the positive side in life due to my grandma giving me a thumbs up. Ukraine war. I have a friend who went through the Ukraine war, and my grandma, she doesn't look at the side of the death tolls and all that. She looks at the side of the rising up and fighting back, and she's really a worldwide hero.
I couldn't agree more.
Oh, you're so